Hi, we're sitting here with Chiké Okonkwo, one of the stars of La Brea and one of my most favorite clients.
I love that.
Yes.
I'm learning that right now.
He's an incredible actor. He comes from England, so we'll all enjoy his accent very, very deeply. You may have also seen him in Burning Sands, Being Mary Jane, and The Birth of a Nation, which was a brilliant film.
Thanks.
We didn't really get
One
to
of my
talk
favorite
about it.
films.
The Birth of a Nation was a brilliant film.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm the most proud of, because it's, we'll go on to speak about this, but as an artist, it's an incredible privilege to be in a situation where you're on set and it's not acting, it's all real.
It was incredible.
That's what that film felt like from start to finish. It felt like it was real. It felt like we were really there. We were really doing it. There was much less suspension of disbelief and much more just looking for truthful moments, looking for a way of honoring the people who we were representing on that film. So yeah, it was a lifelong, I'm sure for the rest of my life, I'll be grateful for it.
Magic. Yeah. Thank you. We're looking forward to talking to you.
The great thing about the work that we all do together is it's not just about acting. It's almost like the psychology of being an actor. Mm-hmm. Now that we've done 2 seasons of this particular show and we've worked on every episode together, it feels like going in for a 3rd season, I've got a real focus, like an athlete almost.
Well, I agree. Yeah. But you've changed physically too, and I mean in the most wonderful way.
Yeah.
You've really.
Well, I'm bulking up in order to lean down, because this is a bit of a different sort of time of the story for Ty. Mm-hmm. He started pretty sick. You were just talking about sickness.
He had brain cancer.
He had brain cancer,
Yes,
right. And
right.
now that he's been somewhat cured, I feel like, and also they've sort of planted this idea that he could become this warrior. He's very much an intellectual, so I want to sort of mark that physically a little bit as well.
That's a really great idea.
Thanks.
No, I love that you're doing all this stuff. This work on it. Stuff. What a funny, stupid thing to say. The most generalized.
It's an interesting, to say stuff. I always think it's funny because I don't think that people really know what happens in preparation because it's so hidden. Do you know what I mean? Most people are really, even if they talk about it, for example, they were just saying in the Banshees of Inisherin that they rehearsed. Well, what does rehearsal really look like for a film where it's not a play? That's not the goal. The goal isn't to work it all out so it's perfect or it's set, because we're going to do different takes. What is prep? And it's so individual for every single actor that it's very confusing, I think.
Yeah, it's been my favorite part of the process since as long as I can remember, really. Mm-hmm. And it should be, quiet behind closed doors, sort of quiet work. It should be work that you don't notice or see when you're watching a performance, but it's the stuff that I enjoy the most, quite frankly. That's not quite true. I enjoy all of it, of course I do, but I really do love peeling back the layers and being, I guess, doing the work. That's a really nice part of the process. And when you're working on a long running thing like La Brea on NBC, and like I was saying, Coach and I worked on it since the pilot, so we got to do a lot of good work way before episode 25 or whatever we're on right now, work that has sort of peeled back layers slowly over the last 2 or 3 years. And I think once it's there, it means you can pull on it. If it's not there, then you kind of can't. I feel like you're winging it in a way.
When you do it, it helps for the writers. It helps them in understanding more about your character by you informing them sometimes. Like, I was thinking my character is like this because of this. Mm-hmm. If they don't like it, that's good. And if they do like it, they can use it. Either way, it's good because it's always showing that you're thinking about your character. You're not making any demands at all. You were wondering if this is the way they want to move the character. Because so often in episodic television, they haven't worked out your character's arc. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's been my experience. I think it's difficult too, isn't it? You come in, especially on broadcast television because you only ever get a few steps of the process. Right. You've got the pilot, maybe you get to a season. You get to a season, maybe you'll get the first few episodes, or maybe you get cancelled. You get the first few episodes, maybe you'll get the back few episodes, and so on and so forth. So it's great, I think, for creators to have a good idea about what the arc of the entire show is going to be. And I think then if you've cast well, hopefully, and if you've got people who are good collaborators, then hopefully there's something that can be a bit more of a push and pull, like you're describing. There can be, of course, great creative ideas that come from the writers' room, and we have great writers on our show. But I do think there's a nice part of being a part of a team where you can, like you say, they see certain things that I've put down, or certain questions that I've asked, or certain direction that I'm looking for my character to move in. And like you say, they take it or they don't. But I've found it to be a really collaborative experience.
You really earn the right to collaborate, because you don't walk on set on your very first job and go like, I don't think my character would do that. Like nobody's going to I know they do, but they don't it's not received often very well.
Also, unless you're a producer star, it's wrong. I mean, these people have been living with this probably for a year, trying to sell it.
The creator, more.
Yes. Sell it, come up with it, write the pilot, do all this. You've got to respect them and then help them make their vision real. Yeah. And then you could collaborate.
I often get asked the question about being a British actor in the US. And I think the only real difference that I've found that's sort of, I can say is absolutely, I'm sure it's not across the board. I think lots of Americans probably work like this as well. But we come from a tradition of writing, of writers. And it means that my first instinct is never, let me change the words. It just never is my instinct.
Yes.
Because you can't change Shakespeare or Ibsen or whatever you're working on growing up or reading as a kid. The word is almost deified in the UK, and in sort of a long tradition of theatre. And
in theatre it is
it's a writer's medium.
They actually have rules in the United States. Do you know?
Yeah, and so
you can't change.
But if you've worked within that space, especially a lot as a kid, I think it means that you have a healthy respect for writing and for writers, and it means that your main job as an actor is to work things out. And sometimes things aren't work outable, but mostly if that's your sort of go-to, I think it means that collaboration then is a sort of offshoot of that attitude. Some of the best pieces of writing I've worked with have been in the US, which is why I came here. But I do feel as though having that sort of initial training as a kid of this is how it's going to be and you're going to make this work, that helps in all the realms of work that I've done, whether it's film, TV, video games, whatever it might be.
Right. Fit yourself to the words. Don't fit the words for you.
Right. Exactly.
That's fit yourself to the words. Then when you've earned it, then you might have a discussion with the writer or the showrunner or whoever about possible changes. But you got to earn it.
I think so. And I'm really, I've been doing this for 22 years now, but I still feel like I'm at the starting line a little bit. And it's a great thing. It's a really wonderful thing to have sort of built my way towards, like everyone builds a career over many, many years. But the great thing about being an actor is you're constantly learning. Coach, you're like this still 50 something years in. Right. You're curious and you're eager and you have that wonderful childlike curiosity about things, about words, about scenes, about life. And one of my great hopes growing up as an actor, when I would look at actors in their 60s, 70s, 80s, was that I could still be feeling the same way about it when I reached that age.
Well, I saw Inisherin, the
Banshees of Inisherin.
Banshees, I saw Inisherin, I'm sorry, and
Brendan Gleeson.
Brendan Gleeson, right, was astounding. And then I saw an interview with him talking about how excited he was in this to create this character as it was, and it came very different than what he initially thought, and he kept discovering new things as they were shooting, new things that he would incorporate, and that's living. That's what, it's a living process is what I'm saying.
To any like younger actors out there who are maybe on the beginning of their journey, what an incredible way to spend your life, to constantly be feeling that, to constantly be looking at the way that we live, to be constantly thinking about how we can evolve. It's just, I think, a really pure art form and a really pure way to express it. And I'm really grateful that I get to do it, and I have done it more of my life than I haven't. But to be able to look forward and say, oh yeah, in 30, 40 years time, imagine what more I could have done.
Because think of the roles that you're going to be able to play at 60, because they're not available to you right now. You're a young man, you're in your 30s, or, you have this type of role that's going to be your bread and butter for the next 20 years, most likely. You can't play the roles that you might want to play. What were you going to play in The Tempest?
That's a good question, actually. So it's funny. I was just about to do The Tempest here in LA, and the director asked me, well, what would you like to do in it? And I said, well, probably too young for Prospero, but Prospero.
Yeah,
frankly,
right. That's the role, right?
That's the thing. As a kid as well, you get to. I've never done a production of The Tempest, but I've spoken those words. I've read those words my whole life, basically, and it's an amazing thing to get to this stage.
He's 60 though, isn't he?
He could be
50.
Could be at least, like you said.
He has to have at least sired a daughter. That's
Yes.
Miranda.
And
So
she's 20.
Well, she's probably 15. I think in the
15.
text, so it's not too much of a fudge.
You could be 35.
But that's the great thing, and of course, theatre is one thing, but then to express every sort of part of life. That was my goal as an actor, starting as an actor, to try and experience as much as I possibly could in these different characters, in these different roles. And there's so much still ahead.
Who did you play in Julius Caesar?
So I joined the cast of the Royal Shakespeare Company's Julius Caesar in 2013. They'd already done it in the UK and actually in Russia.
So it was a touring production.
And then when it came to the US, a couple of actors dropped out, and so I jumped in. I had to learn Brutus in 3 weeks.
Shut up.
Because they weren't sure at the time. Wonderful actor, Patterson Joseph, who was in The Leftovers. He's done a bunch of stuff over here in the US. They weren't sure if Patterson was going to be able to make it. And so I learned it, and then he did, but thankfully I still got to play it a little bit. But it was a long process. And I played some other roles, Metellus Simba and some of one of the conspirators. It was an incredible production. It did really, really well.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible experience to be working in New York. I'd lived in New York for a couple of years, to be able to walk to work and be in that great city. I actually I was living there already. So, but we were at BAM, and I was just had the time of my life, just being able to walk on that great theatre stage, that great stage of the Hobby Theatre. Such
Brooklyn
a brilliant
Academy
place.
of Music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think most people.
I should, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I guess Mark will you'll put those things up like BAM. And
Yeah. We can add that on there.
I've been listening, and as the more I hear, I said, no one's going to know this. No one in the world knows what Brutus is, other than maybe the line.
I would actually say Brutus is the lead of that,
Yeah.
because Julius Caesar is the one who's killed, and then Mark Antony is. It's Brutus.
It's Brutus.
No
Brutus,
question.
You're absolutely right. Caesar's killed. They get rid of him in the middle.
Don't test me on my Shakespeare knowledge.
No, I know. You think I don't know that Julius Caesar's killed? Brutus is killed too. How? I'm testing you. She said, don't test me. Now I'm testing you.
Actually, I don't remember. Do you remember?
I did it.
He falls on his
100
sword.
times.
He falls on his own sword.
Is that right?
Falls on his sword. He says
He kills himself. Yeah.
kills himself.
Bad way to die.
It's a terrible way to die. He didn't say someone cut my head off or something. Could you just slit my throat and shit like that? The Romans used to go into a bath and slit their wrists. Hot bath, bleed out.
Nice.
Did you know that?
I know it now.
Yeah, they were forced.
I don't know why.
No, there was a reason. Whoever was in power, the emperor or whatever, if they wanted to keep their lands, they had to commit suicide. And then these are not my rules, they're Roman rules.
In other words, the people who would inherit would be able to inherit.
Rich people.
I see, yeah.
But they had to commit suicide.
Right. If they committed suicide, the people who their son's wife, whatever, would inherit their wealth, and only because they commit suicide. Otherwise, they kill you and take everything.
I love it.
Aren't humans amazing? We just come up with all these amazing rules, you
just
know?
for no good reason.
Yeah, well, how can we get rid of you and incentivize your death? I mean, isn't that what they're incentivizing? An easy getting rid of somebody easily.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah, and it's such an incredible play, and the political ramifications feel very, very present, very sort of modern day. Mm-hmm. Our production was set in a sort of fictitious East African dictatorship. So whereas Julius Caesar, a lot of the text leans towards him being, lauded and loved, and then the question comes up, well, who is a tyrant or not? It just felt very present in the place we were setting it in, and it was honestly just electric to be a part of that production and to be able to say those words every night.
In your training, before everything, in your training, how did you start?
I was really, really lucky, and I don't think about it a lot, but I do wonder if my mother hadn't taken me and my older sister Anne to Wimbledon Theatre when I was about 6 years old. I do wonder if I would be an actor. If she hadn't done that, I wonder if I'd be an actor, because we went to see production. I still remember it was called Super Ted, which was a cartoon at the time as well.
Super Ted?
Super Ted, about a teddy bear who was a superhero. I was going to
say it must have been a teddy bear. Yes.
But I got to, at the end of the production, the actors came off the stage and picked out some kids from the audience. And I happened to be one of the kids. I think it was like 3 or 4 of us. And my mum said that she could see in my eyes at that point that I'd just discovered something. And the discovery was, wow, they let people do this. This is crazy. And from that moment on, honestly, I was smitten. So I was 6. And then I just wanted to do it as much as I could. And performing meant, whatever you could find at the time. It was singing, it was acting, it was dancing, it was...
Right, but what about actual training?
Training.
Most of us did stuff who loved it. I mean, I had one line singing in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Yippee-ki coyote, get along, little doggy. That was it. Then someone else, it was Americana in an immigrant neighborhood,
right,
where half the kids didn't speak English, including me.
I was going to say, it's very funny to have you singing Yippee-ki-yay, little doggy, when you're like a Jew from the Bronx.
Barely
like
spoke
the
English.
Most,
just
Eastern European.
Just learned English at 6.
I love it.
But eventually... I did go to school in college. That was the first time I actually had some formal training. That's what I'm talking about, really.
Again, I've had some... I think luck plays such a massive role in anyone's career. And look, in the UK, we have quite a big tradition of classical theatre and training in classical theatre. And my goal was to go to drama school. My parents' goal for me was to go to university. And
become a doctor or what?
It's the age-old immigrant story, really. You can't. Why would you waste your time?
Me too.
Being an
immigrant, go be something professional.
Exactly. And so, I sort of pushed back against that somewhat, in that I knew that I had some skill at the time, or some talent, I guess. And so I auditioned without telling my parents, figuring that if I got a full ride, they would let me go. I got said full ride, and they still refused, and I had to go and pay to go to university. So but the luck element comes in that the year before college, I auditioned. 3,000 kids all across the UK auditioned for this company every year called the National Youth Music Theatre. The previous year I'd done the National Youth Theatre, so I'd had some experience of auditioning. My English teacher, Mr. Rogers, which I only just discovered more recently with the Tom Hanks film, is a name that's quite funny. That
did you
my
sing
teacher,
first? Is that what you did?
Well, so National Youth Music Theatre was, you did a musical, but it was always sort of more leaning towards the acting side of things. So we did a musical version of A Midsummer Night's Dream. We did some Sondheim. My first play actually was Into the Woods, which is, it's broadly a musical, but there is some real...
there's a lot of real acting in that musical, absolutely.
And so that was really my real training. I joined that company in the National Youth Theatre when I was 16, and I joined the National Youth Music Theatre when I was 17. And like I said, it was 3,000 kids from all over the country.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said training. Did you have training and then the show, or did you get your training during the show?
It was, funnily enough for me, it was a lot like when I then went into the theatre a few years later. in that when you work at the Royal Shakespeare Company, for example, you have long contracts. So you're doing a year or 2 years there. You'll rehearse for a play. You'll rehearse for 2 plays actually, and then you'll put one up. You'll continue rehearsing the second one, and then in between you'll be doing voice classes. You'll be doing accent classes. You'll be doing. We had this incredible Shakespearean scholar called James Shapiro, who was an American who is one of the leading Shakespearean scholars in the world. But he would come and talk to us about the history of Shakespeare, and so it was like being at school. Right. Whilst we were putting on plays. The same was true for the company. We would do improvisation. We would do all sorts of things. It wasn't formal training in the way that, a 3-year course at RADA or Lambda would be. But it was enough for me to say, okay, great, I've got a start. I'm going to go to university. I did a business computer science degree.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
You were your parents happy?
They were. I got a first. Like I came top of my class in business computer science. I have no idea. I don't know anything about computers really.
Well, computer science has changed a lot
since 2003.
Yes, it changes so rapidly. Every 3 years, there's a paradigm shift, and it's a whole new way of. You have to stay really
Well, when
involved.
Chiké did it, it was Pong. He basically had to move the thing.
Exactly
this
right.
This is computer science. This way. Oops.
It's funny though because I did think
no one knows what Pong is.
I know what Pong is. In my struggling years, I as an actor, I felt like, gosh, I did really well at college, and I graduated in 2003, which was just basically the time of the internet bubble, booming. And so I could have moved to Silicon Valley and had a much different life, but I'm glad that I took this sort of the artist's struggle life instead. But yeah, so just to sort of sum it up, my training really was in those 3 years, for 3 or 4 years with the National Youth Music Theatre, and then I kind of got training where I could.
So now you're working, both England and the States, or just you're doing you got your first television or movie credit tabloid.
That's a movie, yeah. I did this movie with Matthew Rhys. It's a really funny story. Matthew Rhys was a wonderful actor. He does The Americans and great shows.
Oh, I know Matthew Rhys. He's great.
Really great. Not only a great actor, but a lovely man as well. And this is, I only told Matthew this story maybe 4 or 5 years ago because I've known him for a while now, but I was actually an extra on Tabloid. And I'd acted at that point for a really, really long time, but I was at college, I was at university, and I was just trying to get experience on set. And I sidled up to Matthew at lunchtime once, and I just wanted to just talk to one of the actors, and he was fairly young. He's only a few years older than me,
right?
But he was playing this big lead in this film, which was a little bit like the film Network. If you've seen that film, it was sort of a sort of satirical look at tabloid TV.
English,
yeah.
English.
So it was a British movie. In London.
Yeah.
And I went up to Matt and spoke to him at lunch and just got on, just started chatting. And at the end of our conversation, he handed me the sides and he said, look, why don't you take a look at these sides? And I was like, what are sides?
Yeah.
No idea what they were. And it was, a little version of the script that they were going to be shooting that day. And again, I think about how lucky I've been. Gosh. So I read the sides, and the scene that they were shooting that afternoon, it was in a studio, and Matthew was the sort of TV presenter, and there was an audience. I was in the audience. I was an extra, but in the sides it said, God, I think I can remember the line. It was Matthew said something, and then someone heckles from the crowd, and the line was 2 words: piss artist. But I'd read the sides and I'd seen that it said heckler. Says piss artist. And so when it got to that part of the scene, Matthew said his line and no one spoke because it hadn't been assigned. They hadn't cast it.
Right, they hadn't assigned anybody.
And so I shouted out, piss artist. And the director went, cut. And I was like, fuck, I'm getting sacked from this thing.
Yeah, usually you would.
And he said, who said that? I said, well, it was me. And actually, because Matthew, I think he had a knowing look in his eye because he could tell that I was mortified. And
so wrong.
And so the director was like, okay, get him into makeup. And so I got taken into makeup, got taken through the works, and then all of a sudden, in the next setup, there's a camera on me, and of course, there's lights on me.
Wow!
And so that's how I got my first speaking role.
God, I love that story.
On a film, and it's incredible because my first trip to LA was maybe 6 or 7 years later, and one of the people I got to meet was Matthew, and sit down and sort of talk me through the business a little bit, and He's just, again, a lovely, wonderful, generous actor. But it's just so incredible that had he not said that, had he not shown me the sides, like there was no way that would have happened. So
how brave of you! What kind of balls
I know.
to be an extra and scream piss artist.
I think I was 18 or 19 years old. So yeah.
Oh, see,
Changing point in your life.
Yeah.
I know, and that's what's amazing about, because people talk all the time about like,
maybe we should put what piss artist, and define it. What does it actually mean from English?
Yeah. It's someone who's like a con man, like someone who takes the piss.
I didn't know it was a con man. Did you?
Yeah, I
thought it was a bullshit artist.
Yeah, something like that. So it is the similar thing. Like,
right.
So yeah, that was the line. And Matthew would said, a fine artist or a something artist, and I shouted out, piss artist.
I feel like it's such a magical time in any actor's career. The ignorance is actually a blessing.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Like the ignorance really is bliss because you don't know what you don't know. So you're like, I don't know, somebody's going to say this line. Piss artist. And it could have led to you being sacked, but it also worked out great.
It worked out just fine. I was really happy with it.
Yeah.
And then you did a series of, as most actors, the vast majority, you did a series of one episode. Kay was talking with Bree Turner.
Right.
And she said, what did she say?
She said, most people don't want to hear it, but it takes about 10 years to really build a career.
That's so interesting. And we'll come on to this because, I had a really great start in the UK, and like
Silent Witness, New Tricks.
Yeah, so New Tricks was my first real job after university, and it was the reason I didn't go to drama school, because I was just going to audition again and spend 3 years at drama school because I knew I could. At that point, right. I'd worked. I'd worked as a professional. I'd done loads of plays with the NYMT, right. The National Youth Music Theatre, all around the world. Actually, I was sort of. At 21, I was experienced enough to know I could go into the industry, but I still wanted to get the training because classical theatre was really what my goal was. That said, whilst I was in my third year at college, I did something that they don't do in the UK very often, but I did a pilot for New Tricks. It was something that I auditioned for. I had an agent at this point. New Tricks then became a series, and it went on to do something like 12 or 13, maybe even more, 15 years it ran for. And I was in the first season of that show. Oh. And it was an incredible experience.
Fired you?
They didn't actually. Painful still 25 years later. No, they didn't.
Now we find out. It went on for so long. What the fuck? Why are you not in New Tricks?
Well, I'm glad I'm not. But I got an opportunity just between seasons 1 and 2 of that show to do a play at the National Theatre.
Oh, I see.
And
that's a pretty brilliant reason.
It was honestly all of my dreams come true. Still to this day, people on that production. It was Adjoa Ando, who's in Bridgerton, David Harewood, who's done a bunch of stuff here in the UK.
Oh, I love you. Yeah.
Michelle Dockery, it was her first job, and she's gone on to become such an incredible actor and artist and friend. But wonderful actors, a wonderful experience to be there where Laurence Olivier had been. And
so you had to leave New Tricks.
I did, yeah. And it was, I'm sure at the time, an odd decision, but it was genuinely my dream come true.
I got to be honest, it's not an odd decision if you're interested in being more than a hack. You want to be an artist. I don't think it's embarrassing, although a lot of people are afraid to say it, because most people don't even get an opportunity to be an artist. They just thrill to be working, which is completely understandable. But I don't think we get into this just to work. I mean, there are better ways to make a living.
Certainly are.
I mean it.
There certainly are.
To not talk about wanting to be, maybe a better word than artist is the best that you can be. That's a better word. Because if you're going to be the best that you can be, on some level, you're a fucking artist. The best that you can be. The sad thing is most of us don't get an opportunity to be the best we can be because we don't get work.
Yeah, and more than that, we don't even get the opportunity to work for so many actors. And I've been blessed in so many different ways. And I think the opportunity is the thing that I've been most grateful for. First of all, in the UK, but especially when I got to the US. And to come on to your point of that Bree made, I moved to the US in 2011. I'd worked for about 10 years in the UK and done some wonderful things on stage, but none of that really mattered here. They're not really markets, especially before streaming. They weren't sort of complementary markets at all. But if I haven't counted this, but I would imagine it's almost 10 years to the day. I'm going to cry. Jesus, I didn't want to cry today.
Aaron cries every day. Don't worry.
My first conversation with Coach, I cried more than I've cried in a really long time. Oh man, he's going to get me again. Because Coach said to me, oh man, it's going to get me. I don't know if you remember this, Coach, but you said to me, the fact that you're here speaking to me means that you won. You took a bet on yourself at some point in your life. You took a bet on yourself, and the fact that we're here right now doing what we're doing means that you won. You were right. All of the sacrifice,
yes,
all of the hard work and all of the doubt and all of the misunderstanding, all of it was worth it because now you get to start. That was probably 10 years, I don't know, almost to the day after I got to the US. Yeah. And I came here, with some experience and with some idea that I could hit the ground running. You watch your peers, everyone does. And you can't help but compare at certain points.
That's right.
But it took me 10 years before, and look, I've had some wonderful successes along the way, but really to start thinking of myself as a real artist in the way that I've always wanted to be, took me 10 years here in the US.
Yes, I know. I felt you were doubting you were. That was the begin. We didn't start working on the script. No. You remember, because I said, we can't work on any script until we make sure we're clear that you are that. I don't care what the script says or what the script is, even if the script is bad, we're going to approach it a certain way as we're going to make the best of us in this script. And if we can elevate the script even a little, we've done a great job.
Yeah. Notice I couldn't look at Coach just then because I didn't want to cry.
That's okay.
So I just sort of looked at the microphone.
It's good to have the hat.
Exactly.
It's a good shield.
This much of me.
To have people who want to be artists, really, who care, is the people I want to work with. Kay and I were talking about this on the way here, that's the real people I want to work with. I'm happy to work with other people. It's nothing, but I get the greatest satisfaction from working with people who are really serious and take it serious. Even if the scripts aren't great, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, and honestly, since I was that 6-year-old on that stage in Wimbledon, I just not wanted anything else in my life other than to tell stories. And I feel for, again, friends along the way, people I've met, wonderful artists, people who've really worked really hard, who don't get the opportunities, who don't even get auditions or what have you. And
Kay,
both of us.
I did get auditions and I did get representation, and I did book some things on TV. I was a co-star of a mini series, and I got quite a few auditions. But you never got representation.
Yeah, I really. Not to make this about me, but I showed up.
It's not about you.
No, I know.
Sorry.
I know.
It's about all the actors who are wonderful actors who are in that position.
Well, you want to talk about timing, getting started early, not even in a financial way, meaning financial success, but just becoming an artist early and then showing up in a place where you can actually book work. I mean, I was in the Midwest until I was 22, and then I didn't show up in LA until I was 25. And for a young woman, that's a rough go because the industry wants experience by that age.
Yeah.
And so it was difficult for me to get my foot in the door. But, you were talking about growing as an actor and an artist, and the older you get, the opportunities that are going to come towards you. And when I decided that I wanted to teach, I really thought to myself, like, wow, I'm going to get to do this work forever.
Yeah.
Until either I don't want to do it anymore or I can't do it anymore. And I feel like that's such an honor, and I can do it with people that are brilliant.
The thing I've learned in this last sort of mini chapter, I guess, of my life, last 3 years we've been working on the show together, La Brea, and in this chapter of my life, I think I've really, I look back and I do feel very grateful. I feel grateful more than most things actually, but I do think that I feel the weight of responsibility now, because I have had so many friends along the way who were like, talent doesn't even cover what they've had,
yes.
and the talent hasn't necessarily met with the opportunity. Now that I have had these opportunities, not just for myself and my family, I do feel a responsibility to. I feel a responsibility to be an artist. Quite frankly, it's like you were saying, Coach. It's an honor. It's a real privilege to be able to spend your life that way, and I think the people who put their lives into it are the ones who have really sort of left their mark on me. Whether it's colleagues of mine or people whose performances I've watched, it's one of those things to be able to say that person has given their life to the thing that they do. There are very few professions that allow you to do that, and it's not healthy in lots of ways. But I have had this mentality, and we've spoken about it lots of times, that unless all of it matters, none of it matters. And I've worked my way to this position in my life. I feel very privileged to have done so. And now it's on me to really make sure I give everything my all.
Chiké and I was working on Emancipation, and from the trailer, we would have a break of an hour or 2 hours in the trailers on location in a swamp. And Chiké would be calling me up in the middle, who knows what time it was in Australia.
Yeah.
I don't know, saying, let's work on this scene I got coming up tomorrow, I said, yeah, let's do it.
And man, am I grateful for that, because we haven't missed an episode on La Brea, and on a long running show, I think some actors might feel, oh, well, you know the character now, it's sort of easier. I actually think it's gotten harder. And so I need to be even more on my game. And this is the thing, Kay, when you were speaking before, that made me think of the privilege of this. No one does this on their own. Mm-hmm. And without you working 15-hour days and then coming to the trailer to sit with me whilst it was, I don't know what time in Louisiana, and it was what time for me in Melbourne. But without that support, I'm realizing very, very difficult to do work that is of the standard that I aspire to. And you speak about Will and Emancipation, such an incredible performance.
Yes.
And it's that it takes a village to build something like that.
You talked earlier, now that we're on La Brea, about, because I so clearly remember you had brain cancer in the first episode.
Yeah.
Terminal brain cancer.
Yeah. And
you were really sick. You could have died pretty much any point in the first, right? In the first year, the first season, rather.
Yeah.
Right. And it was our goal.
that was your joke. It was like, well, if you're good, they'll keep you around.
That was our joke. That
your brain cancer will go away.
Let us make sure that you're so interesting in your relationships with the other characters.
Isn't that a great thing as well? Honestly, I will say this, that there were, again, it's funny the way things work out, but there were a couple of other things that were sort of, the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And it put our work on hold for a year.
And they recast a lot of the roles, didn't they?
The vast majority. And there were also a couple of other things for me, that having worked so hard to get into a place where I could book work like this, then it was like buses, the work just started to come. And when it came to making a choice to go back to La Brea or start a different thing, it was actually that. It was the fact that this character had so much stacked against him. He had brain cancer. He wanted to commit suicide. Right. As an actor, that's really juicy stuff to get your teeth into. Yeah. And so we would talk about it a lot. And like I say, it wasn't just the let's go through the scenes and work out how to do this in the best possible way. It was, let's talk about life as an actor, as a working actor. Right. Let's talk about how you create something that really sort of makes a mark on the show. Let's talk about the other aspects of life that are happening or shooting in Australia, across the world. And it was a really holistic way of coming to the work.
Every relationship became important. Every relationship, because the character was also a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
So his relationship and the way he came to help everyone whether it was physically or mentally, we felt was critical to helping everyone live in 10,000 BC or whatever year that was. What was it, 10,000?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
10,000 BC. Because I had been worked on other series, and we had talked about this. I had worked on other television series where the actors weren't, not the ones I was working with, but some of them just weren't serious enough. And they killed them off.
and that's
and I would even say that this one's dead 7 episodes in. And I was off. They killed him in 6 episodes.
You can't be right about everything.
But that's an important part of the job, and the important part of the process is that you learn how to, of course, have integrity around the work that you do and your own process. I don't knock actors' processes. It's a difficult thing to do.
It is.
And it's a difficult thing to do well, and also, I don't know, be love and light all the time. It's not necessarily the case all the time, but
no, you don't have to be love and light all the time, though. You just can't
be a complainer.
Yes,
right.
Pain in the ass.
Here's an old theatre story from England. They would call a group of actors, like, there's a pride of lions or a school of fish.
Yes.
They would call them a moan of actors.
That sounds about right.
It's that age-old saying, if you really want to make an actor moan, give them a job. I did not want to be that person.
No.
So
it won't serve you. It's also just for your life.
That is
you know what I mean?
A moan of actors.
It's an old AD thing from the UK of like assistant directors on stage.
Yeah.
And it's true. And like I say,
to complain, don't they?
But it's a difficult thing to do, and it's a difficult thing to be so out of control for such long periods of time, and for the stakes to be so high because the whole world could see this. And so, like I say, I don't knock other actors' process, however they want to do it, but I have learned to do this in a particular way, which is collaborative. And it's about the fact that a high tide raises all ships. And to use another cliche, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. So even if I'm a lead in something, I feel like it's incumbent upon me to be a leader in as much as how we create an atmosphere on set. And that's not for everyone, but I really appreciate the fact that I've been able to do that sort of quietly in smaller roles in my time in the US, and playing Ty Coleman on La Brea is a larger role, and there are larger roles than that in my future.
But don't you think that's also an extension of your generosity? The generosity that you were talking about that has been extended to you. How do you pass that on? And being a leader, a gentle leader, one who is interested in collaboration, not ruling from above, right? That's generosity.
So to that point, we don't need to make this all about Will Smith, but he is literally the biggest movie star on earth. He's the biggest number one there is. Mm-hmm. And yet, when I was around the work that he would do, he was the most collaborative person that I've witnessed. And I've known actors my entire life, and to see the biggest actor, one of the biggest actors of all time, behave in that way, it's not rocket science. If you want to proceed in this career, then it takes to learn from things from the best people.
Well, the best people make you better. Really. If you're a fool if you don't understand that they're all trying to make you better. You don't have to agree with everything they say, but you're working with the best people. Listen, at least.
Yeah. And that's what I mean as well about having integrity around your own art form. And I think that's really important. It's then how those sort of separate bubbles of separate artists are able to mesh together that I think makes truly transcendent or great art without getting too wanky about it. But I've been really lucky to be a part of really great teams. And when I sort of step back and analyze why they were great, it's for that reason. It's that there were lots of individual artists whose individual processes came together to make this incredible thing. Right. The whole was more than the sum of its parts. I think some actors do have an attitude of, well, I'm the star, I'm the lead, and that's what goes. It maybe it works for some people. It hasn't necessarily worked in the environment that I've worked in for many years.
It works for some people, but on a deeper level, does it really work for your life better? Does it make your life better? No, really. I mean, I know it works for some people, meaning some people are not generous and mean or whatever you want to call it. They don't They won't do off-camera takes, whatever, like that stuff, you know. But does that really make your life better? Isn't that deeper? What? Didn't we go into this to make or to just be selfish?
Right.
That, you know,
Just to be a star and to make the money and to get the
want to make our
acclaim.
lives better?
Just in that, I think, again, it is a difficult job. It is tiring as well when you're on set. You all know this, but there is still that 18. Actually, I might have been 17 or 18 when I did tabloid TV, that film we mentioned earlier. I still am that kid who wants to be on set, who wants to ask questions, and I love being on a set. So it doesn't really serve me to moan about the thing that I really enjoy doing, because I really do like being there. And so when it comes to, like you're saying, being off camera, that's an extra opportunity for me to practice, to rehearse, to be in the character, to be in and around a place that I really enjoy being, and that I have done since I was a teenager. So yeah, it doesn't occur to me. I'm not trying to sound all high and mighty at all. Again, believe me, I understand different people's processes, but there is a realization that I've had this last few years, being on a big TV show set for big periods of time. It's a real joy to be able to create in this way. So let's at least try and do our part to make it a joyful process as well.
Yes. The better prepared you are, the easier it is on the director, the writers, the other actors, the stunt people.
Yeah.
One of the people I worked with recently, you know, he had done some extra work with a trainer kind of person dealing with something with his character. And he found out that he was wearing the wrong pants for a scene.
Right.
Which he didn't know until...
Because this person, this expert in this particular field said, you would never wear those pants in this situation.
Right.
They are inappropriate. And this is the reason why.
Right.
So he asked for different pants on the day of. Innocently, not understanding, they don't have different pants. They're prepared numerous pants for you in case they get dirty or anything.
Right.
But they don't have like this other set of pants. You'd have to tell them a couple of days before. Then they'll be happy to get you those pants. So he asked for those pants, right? Not understanding that would create a furor of everyone looking for the pants. And now he's late. He's a half hour late.
And they're talking on the walkie-talkie. Yes, this person needs another pair of pants.
Oh gosh.
And it's making the costumers look bad. Like, why does he need another?
He's not happy with the pants. And you're like, oh God.
And he didn't even know this was going on because he was innocent. He thought, well, that would be easy, you know?
Yeah.
And then finally someone told him, you know, that they're waiting for you. It's been a half hour. And he's like apologized profusely. He took the pants. He went to the set, you know, that he had. He was told not to do that. You can't at the last second make changes.
You know, that's true of costume and makeup, whatever it might be, but it's especially true, I think, of the script. Like, it's the job of an actor, again, I believe, to have worked that stuff out before you get there on the day.
Right.
Yeah.
It just takes too much time. And look, it's not always possible. Communication is difficult. Writers' rooms or writers are busy. But it's one of those things that we've created a really nice sort of shorthand, in as much as we'll work on a scene at least a week if we can before. Then it'll give me some time to formulate ideas separately from our work, and then we'll often have another conversation about it, so I can sort of set those things in stone. And in the process of that, I will on our show speak to the writer or the showrunner, and Coach always says this, like, make the suggestion. They might not take it. You know, they might take 10% of the things you offer up, but I do think it's a better way of working than turning up on the day and saying, well, this doesn't work. This is whatever.
10% is great respect to you. That they take anything means they liked it.
Yeah.
You're adding to the show.
And
10%.
look, I'm cheating. I have a cheat code on this because I've got great minds to bounce things off of. I've literally a coach who's coaching my ideas and my thoughts and my way of doing the work. So I probably come to them with, it at least feels as though I've thought it through at the very least. And of course, we've done more than think it through. We've worked it through. We've worked it from every angle. And that's, again, it's another part of this process of being an actor that I feel as though it's the right time in my life, in my career, because so much of what we do is on our own, up to a certain point. And
there's no real rehearsal on your set other than blocking rehearsal
100%.
where they just block for the cameras.
The loudest part of coverage on actors is scandals.
Right.
This person went to rehab. This person is having a mental breakdown. That person's having an affair. I mean, that is the primary coverage of actors, because we feel on some level like, oh, they're the gods, and to watch them fall, where that's very titillating.
Yes. Yeah.
We want... I just saw today the male lead in Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? The headline said, he was snubbed by Hollywood after he finished this film. And I was like, that doesn't sound right. So then I read the article, and all he said was after he finished the film, he was auditioning and he just wasn't booking anything. That's very different than being snubbed.
Yeah.
But we want the headlines. We love the headlines. And the quiet work, like the preparation or the blocking rehearsals or the time with a coach, that is not that interesting, actually.
Yeah. All the work that he did to get to that point, where that brilliant work on that film, which was my favorite film of the year. All of them, there's no discussion. They talk about Michelle. What is
Michelle Yeoh,
Yeoh.
yes.
She wasn't just a martial artist and the brilliant martial arts that she did. She also learned acting, worked hard at it.
For 45 years, 40 years.
Right. Yes. However you learn it.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to school.
No.
You learn it on set.
And this is actually to the earlier point, like, a set is a pretty magical place. I know it can be boring and things take time, but there are invariably someone in each department who is probably one of the best in the world at what they do.
Absolutely.
And so
on King Richard, to that point, the costume designer had just won an Academy Award for costume designing. And I didn't know. And we all got introduced and we were talking. And then she was just the sweetest woman, and it's like, what a sweet woman. And then she's like one of the best costume designers in the world.
And so how many opportunities in your life do you get to be in a room where there are 10, 15, 50 people who are the best in the world at what they do? And so there's always an opportunity to learn. There's always something to be gained from being in that environment. So yeah, it's another thing that I also just love the machinery of storytelling. I love trying to understand more and more.
She showed me something about the costume that helped Will's character that I didn't she said,
Was it the shorts?
Yes. It was the shorts.
They were integral.
Well, they were integral to make him feel not like Will. Integral to make him feel like Richard
Williams.
Yeah.
And how strange they were, and you have to look at the film to see.
No, when he strides on set wearing those very small shorts, you immediately know that's not Will Smith.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't.
No, but Richard did.
Yeah.
Richard chose those shorts because they were the exact shorts, and she did that.
And that detail is so imperative. It's like painting a canvas. There are small details in that canvas.
She did, and it was so helpful.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but it's just that. I played an LAPD cop a few years ago, and I got to spend a few days like riding along with an LAPD cop. And it's a small detail, but he had his house keys attached to the front of his belt. And after sort of day 2 or 3, I asked him why, and he was like, "Oh, it's just it's nice to remember that I'm going to go home at the end of the day."
Oh, wow.
And like that small detail, I had my keys right on the front of my belt in that movie because that was such an important thing. Not just, and he didn't say this, but the way that I extrapolated that was he's got to get home to his wife and kids. It's a dangerous job. It's a tough job. Honestly, it was a very conflicting thing for me to play an LAPD police officer. I think it's a tough job to do. I think good people have to be doing those jobs. And this guy was just a regular guy wanting to get home to his family. So that helped me perspective-wise massively, that one tiny detail. And costume designers like the one you mentioned are able to bring those things to an actor and help them elevate the work, or collaborate in bringing those things to fruition.
Well, the costumes so helped him in that movie. The makeup, the hair. I mean, it's a collaborative thing with these wonderful artists. His teeth, all these things that were done.
And that's the thing that I'm really excited about just moving forward in my career. And I do think it's a great thing to be able to still be excited about the work that we do. And I'm excited that we do all of this work quietly at the moment. And it's not my job to draw attention to it. I'm playing my role within this specific ensemble. It's an ensemble show. It's not about Chiké. But to be able to look forward in my career and think about the work that so many actors that I love and admire, when all of those things are there, just like extra tools to help you do your job, that's a remarkable thing. When you've been sort of quietly doing it on your own for years and years, to suddenly be in a position where you have all of that support, it's just incredible.
And you're going to have bad days. This is for all actors, and I'm sure you're going to have, really bad days where you feel, my career sucks and I'll never work again. And that's what you have your team. That, wait a second, hold on, slow down.
I'm curious, Chiké, because I know you worked a lot in theater in England. Was there a time where you did have to have a survival job?
Yeah, from the beginning, actually. I worked when I was at college, and I was even when I was doing it, I did the pilot for New Tricks when I was at college, and man, it's amazing when I used to work in a theme park at the time, and like you're getting paid, I don't know, £3 or £4 an hour at the time.
Yes.
And then you get paid a little bit more to do a TV pilot. It's amazing that's where you earn money to sort of help you survive. But then all the way through my 20s, from the start, I would go from doing a TV job to being a waiter or, so many different jobs. I got to a point though, I was maybe 28 and it was my first, I think it was 11 months, it was my first time in my career where I hadn't worked for 11 months. And it felt like my world was ending. And I've had a bit more experience now, so that doesn't feel like that much.
Not the end of the world.
It's not. Yeah. But I remember working, I was cycling, I was living in Primrose Hill in London. I would cycle to the centre of London, to Holborn, to work in this office. And I'd done this business computing degree, so I was doing pretty well at the job. And I one day came into work and the supervisor said, we really love the work you're doing. We'd love to offer you some more money to do a bit more. And it was one of those crossroad moments in life. As an artist, I was like, I can't go down this road. And I remember cycling home that day saying to myself, I need to quit and I need to never do a job that's not acting again. And I quit the next day. I had no money, no prospects, but I maybe a month later got a job. Again, I'd always wanted to. I got a job at the Royal Shakespeare Company. It was to do 4 plays that year. It was their 50th anniversary season. It was a really important season for the company, and without sounding too esoteric or whimsical about it, it was that intention that I put out into the universe. And I actually haven't had another job that wasn't acting since that day, 13 years ago, whenever it was, 10 years ago. So it's...
but sometimes you do have to take another job. I mean, because when people hear that, it always bothers me that they are going to think like, I have to quit. And I'm not doing 100%.
No.
And that's not true.
No, it's not. And look, so again, I've been able to sort of get the auxiliary things around acting. So voiceovers, for example.
I know. Since the second you started talking, I was like, Chiké knows how to use a microphone. Do you see the way that he is using his microphone?
I keep
Could
watching.
You learn from him?
No, I'm watching and I keep saying, should I do this? I don't know. Mark, what? I mean, I'm feeling like, is this better? is this okay to do this, Mark?
I read that you
It
do.
is better? Why didn't you tell me? I hate you, Mark. I'm doing this like my 5th episode, and now you're telling me, yes, I could do this. I could do Chiké. Well, of course.
now he's got something
I did
to
the Royal
prove.
Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York.
Don't
Knew
do
this?
that.
What's up? This is very bad.
No,
That's
we
the
can
first
hear
time
you.
you've
We
done
can hear you before too. You sound great as well.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so I struggled.
Stupid.
I struggled.
I'm sorry, man. I'm just stupid. You know that.
But I wanted to be able to earn money from voiceover, and
Yeah.
it's hard to do. It was really hard to get my foot in the door. But I sort of, you're absolutely right, Coach. Like, again, I've been an actor for more of my life than I haven't been. I've known the majority of people that I've known in my life have been actors, and there is no one way of doing things, and there's no sort of dishonor. Actually, I think it's the highest honor to keep yourself going when you aren't getting paid to do the
I
work.
love that you said there's no dishonor there, because many people think they're failing because they're doing another job.
I think the only way you succeed as an actor, and this isn't true of all art forms, but as an actor, the only way you succeed is by persevering, and is by keeping on going. And if you, it sort of, for me, means, again, maybe it's not a healthy perspective to have, but it meant for me to do everything I possibly could to keep on going. I knew for me, working in that office was going to destroy my soul, my artistry. And there was such a big gap at that particular point in my life between what I felt my potential was and what I was actually achieving.
Yeah.
And so I needed for myself to sort of shock myself into situations. I shocked myself by quitting that job. I managed to get a job at the Royal Shakespeare Company. I worked at the RSC for a year. The day I finished, I moved back from Stratford-upon-Avon, where Shakespeare was born, back to London, packed a bag, and a week later I was living on my own in New York. I didn't know anyone in New York.
Wow.
But I wanted to work in the US that badly. By the way, in the midst of that, I don't recommend this at all. But I fired my UK agent because there had been too much resistance to me doing the thing that I felt like I needed to do.
Yeah.
And so it's not to say this is just my path. It's just the way that my life has just transpired. And believe me, there's been a lot of struggle in the choices that I've made. But again, to come now full circle, 2020, 2021, or whatever it was, 2020, and feel like, okay, now I'm at the starting line. Now, with all of this accumulated knowledge and experience, I can really make the most of this opportunity in front of me on this show, La Brea, and I can work with one of the best acting coaches in the world. I can be able to have access to things that I haven't been able to afford before, haven't been able to do before. I didn't actually even know they existed. Before meeting Will Smith, I didn't know that an actor like Will would use an acting coach. I didn't. And so it's...
And how about the team of your agent or manager? They're how wonderful they are in their support now of you.
Yeah. So Coach was both of you were at my 40th birthday, and don't mind sharing, I thanked it felt like an Academy Award speech. I thanked the people in my life, so many of them, you both included, who have supported me. And it's great and it's important to have supportive people, but it is a business and you've got to make money.
I know.
Right.
The thing I was going to say is, you got guts, and maybe you've suffered at certain times on the basis of, your gut decisions, but wow, you got to have guts in this industry. You can't make it.
Yeah.
You can't make it unless you've got the guts to say, fuck it. I'm going to move to New York. I don't care if I don't know anybody there. I'm going.
Yeah.
That's guts.
And
I mean, I'd say balls, but I don't want to be that, I don't want to go only towards the men, because we all got guts,
this is
right?
true. This is true. And look, actually on that point, I feel as though being an actor, being an actress, it's a difficult thing. I've got so many female friends who are actors who have a whole set of other things that they face in this industry that I do not face. And so I think what it comes down to, or the point I was making previously that aligns with this, is that support that you have, being able to have other actors around you who sort of know what it is that you're going through, who having a coach who can help you. I think one of the hardest things I've witnessed so many times now is when you become somewhat successful, it's almost like I've seen more actors sort of suffer from success than I have seen them suffer from failure, quote unquote. And because for most actors, they haven't been in that position before. And so for me to have coaches support in saying, keep the main thing, focus on this, or like, it's just so important, because I didn't come this far to then fail because I don't know, things went to my head or whatever it might be.
There's such a fantasy that when you have the series that it's going to make all of your problems disappear and you're going to be happy. And I'm speaking from my experience, but Aaron's been watching it for much longer than I have. It just is not true. And it's, I'm sure, disappointing.
Yeah.
Also, defining failure, you have to, for yourself at this moment, because it's going to change, defining failure and success, because you could easily define what you're doing now as not successful.
Right.
It's not really that successful, you know. You're not starring in the series. Right. You're not starring in your own feature film.
Oh, it's such a funny game.
Well,
it's a game, you know. It's like, yes, you absolutely
sends you into a spiral of depression.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
and I think actually coming into, we've spoken quite a lot about this one particular job, La Brea, but you know, obviously there are lots of other things, and thankfully, God willing, there's going to be many more things, but it was a defining line for me, because being 10 years here in the US, that is kind of the focus. It is a goal. Even though I couldn't get arrested on network TV for 10 years. Like, yes. I barely would get callbacks or tests on that specific work. It's weird on like what we call prestige stuff. Mm-hmm. I'd be testing often, but I didn't really expect my path to take me down this road. But it is it's been, honestly, even though it's been a tricky thing as well in lots of ways, it's been such an incredible experience to be on a long-running show. We're about to go and film our 3rd season, to be doing that many episodes, to be. It's like an athlete learning an endurance sport or something, or endurance training. I've really appreciated the experience. It's maybe not where my goals or focuses have been in my life or career, but I'm really grateful that it's happened, and grateful that, you know, once when the show comes to an end, I can take everything I've learned and put it into the next things.
Artists aren't sprinters,
right?
They're marathon runners, don't you think?
I agree.
I'm sure all are. I can't talk about musicians, but we're marathon runners, not sprinters. There are sprinters, and they're out fast. You know, I just want to do a side note.
Sure.
Where do you work with charity work?
One United Bank.
United Bank and the Child's Defense Fund.
I do.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When we were doing research, we like to just see what is that.
It's always been a part of my DNA, and so many artists that I've been around and have learned from and have grown with, that I think the thing that makes an artist a great artist is being connected to the world in some way, shape, or form. And so, just from being a kid, I've been curious about the world. I've been focused, I think, on justice, on a sense of right and wrong, not in a moralistic sense at all, but in the sense of wanting the underdog to win, perhaps, or wanting to be part of stories where people could fulfill their highest potential. And so I guess growing up in the UK and in London and then moving to New York, I was just always rubbing up against the world in that way. And it always helped to inform me as a person and as an artist. I think that's where real artists learn, is if you can look at the world and rub up against every strata of society. And so that's just been who I've been since I was a kid. But then those two companies in particular, Children's Defense Fund and One United Bank, and other things that I've worked with. One other prominent thing is I'm a co-facilitator for a restorative justice course at Lancaster Prison. And there are reasons that those are the 3 things that I've gravitated towards. But the reason I think maybe useful for me to share it is that what I've learned as an artist is that my life, or my experience of life, is so much fuller when I'm not focused on myself. And being in LA being on the grind, being, pounding the pavements, going to auditions, it can be a very insular life. It can be, you can focus on yourself. Then success, quite frankly, can make you focus on yourself. But I just learned along the way that when I was able to focus outward on other people, trying to be helpful, trying to support where I can, it doesn't only help me as an artist, it helps me as a man, and it helps me it helps my experience of life to be more fulfilled, and hopefully to be able to sort of just share unique moments with people.
You still find time now that you're on a series regular to do
so
this?
I head back to Australia to film season 3 March 10th, but I'm going back to Lancaster Prison March 6th. So it's trying as much as you can. And sometimes my help is talking about it, but to be on the ground and actually focused on doing that work, it's been, I would say it's probably the thing I'm most proud of in my 10 years here in the US.
Well, we've kept you a long time. We were supposed to do an hour. We've done more, much more.
It's almost 5. It's 10 to 5.
Yeah, so
We'll let you go.
I could talk to you guys forever. I really could.
Is there anything that you'd like to say at all?
I look at both of you, and you've both supported me so much. And I know that I'm not the only one. You support so many artists. You've devoted your life to supporting artists. Again, I don't want to get emotional about it, but it's tough. It's tough doing this job. It's tough doing the job that you guys do, because you carry artists. You help support artists through this journey of life. And look, all I'm hoping that I can achieve in my career is some moments that connect and feel like truth to people. But first of all, my ability to do that, and also my thoughts that I'm able to do that, have just been increased 100-fold since meeting you both and working with you. And so it's one of those things that I don't want to be too earnest about being an artist. We're not saving lives or curing cancer, but we are, I do think, doing an important job. And so if there are people listening or watching who are wanting to be artists, wanting to devote themselves, I just want to encourage them and say, I think that you have picked a noble profession, and it's not always depicted that way. But I think we need stories, we need storytellers. And as far as my life and career is concerned, I'm so grateful to have the support of you guys. So thanks for your role in my life and for inviting me on.
We're trying to do the podcast to bring a much wider audience of artists, wannabe artists, people who are feeling they're left out of this world. That's why we're doing the podcast, to have everyone talk about these totally different experiences of becoming an artist or a working person in our field.
Yeah, the struggles, the successes, all of it. And wow, we're just really thankful that you came and talked to us about it. Really,
and I love you,
Thank you.
I love you too, man.
And I love you, Kay.
I love you.
And I love you, Mark. And that's a good way I think we can go out.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.